Ghost fishing nets are a type of plastic. The more they are in the environment, the more the impact will be. Our reefs, our seabed is covered in these nets. As long as they are there, the marine life won't have space to call it their home. We will continue to do our expedition. We will continue to volunteer as divers to go out to these reefs, survey, and go out and remove these nets. This is something we are going to be continuing to do, and we will not give up.
Our ocean provides for us. The health of the world depends on the health of the ocean. From the air we breathe, to the rain we get, to the food we eat, and the global temperature depends solely on our oceans. With the ever-increasing population and with the increase of carbon emissions, our ocean's health has been declining. With the increase in commercial fishing practices, we have been losing a lot of our marine life. Overfishing, unethical and illegal fishing practices have had a direct and an indirect impact on marine biodiversity. It's estimated that ghost gear makes up at least 10% of marine litter. That means an estimated 750 million tons of fishing gear gets left in the ocean every year. Just in the North Pacific Gyre, nets, lines, and ropes from fishing and shipping make up 46% of the floating plastic. 4.6 million fishing vessels were in operation globally in 2018, with Asia having the largest fleet. Plastic pollution in the oceans is expected to triple by 2040 if drastic measures are not taken to control it. In Sri Lanka, 41% of the sea turtles found in the sea are entangled due to ghost fishing nets, leading to injuries and even death. One of the leading causes for microplastic in the Gulf of Mannar is because of ghost fishing nets. In the same area, it is estimated that 1,152 square meters of coral reefs have been impacted by ghost nets, and 44% of all marine pollution is because of ghost fishing nets. A survey done with 325 fishing vessels found that 22.6 tons of fishing gear was lost to the marine environment in 2021, meaning each vessel lost 116 kilograms of nets. Ghost fishing nets are a death trap for the marine life. Fishing nets continue to destroy our few remaining corals through entanglement. Plastic pollution continues to occupy the space within the reefs where marine life should be thriving. Plastic pollution breaks down into smaller microplastics, where marine life mistake them for food, hindering the health of the ocean ecosystem. While only 10% of marine pollution washes up to the shoreline, 90% of it will remain at sea.
The Pearl Protectors is a youth-led marine conservation organization in Sri Lanka, started in 2018. We so far have about 2,000 volunteers and about 20 core team members. Our main objective is to create awareness around the ocean and the importance of conservation, and to highlight the issues and challenges the marine environment is facing. We are also advocating for better policies and regulations in Sri Lanka, and we do that through research, and we also do citizen science programs, and we also promote volunteerism in Sri Lanka by giving volunteer opportunities focused through ocean conservation and marine environment protection. Based on these three key objectives, the Pearl Protectors has been doing a lot of activities, events, initiatives, and also we have took responsibility in conducting various ocean conservation initiatives in Sri Lanka. Some of the work that we are doing right now is cleaner seabeds for Sri Lanka, where we identify sensitive marine ecosystems and reefs around Sri Lanka, where much of these reefs are affected by plastic pollution or ghost fishing nets. Sri Lanka is one of the top countries in the world where our ocean is polluted, and also being centrally located in the Indian Ocean, we see a lot of other types of pollution in our sea. Some of the main types of pollutions are single-use plastic and of course ghost fishing nets. We are here today in Uppaveli Trincomalee on the eastern coast of Sri Lanka, where we've identified some of the reefs have been covered in ghost fishing nets. And so our task is to clean them up and to remove these ghost fishing nets from further impacting the marine environment.
So ghost nets are, well, originally fishing nets that of course fishermen use, and they end up as lost fishing gear because, well, either they get stuck on the reef, and once ghost nets or fishing nets get stuck on the reef, you can't free them anymore. Fishermen have to cut them free to at least save a little part of it. On the other hand, they can also get lost because of currents or winds or monsoons and stuff like that. They can get lost at sea. But sometimes fishermen also just discard them on purpose, because discarding them in a proper way would be way too expensive. So that's why ghost nets, fishing nets, all fishing gear ends up in the ocean. Okay, so what the ghost nets do when they get stuck on the reef is they act like razor blades. They destroy all the corals. Corals can't get much needed sunlight anymore. Corals cannot grow. Some corals try to grow through it, but it's very, very rarely. Another thing is that fish get stuck in a net, because a ghost net is made to kill, right? A ghost net is made to catch fish, and it also does so when it's not in use anymore. So whatever gets caught in the net gets entangled and drowns or starves. It can be fish, it can be turtles, it can be sharks, anything really. So yeah, that's what happens when ghost nets haunt the seas. They also call them the silent killer of the ocean, because that is really what they are. They kill everything that is around and that they can get a hold of. And the problem with ghost nets is they are made of nylon, and nylon is a plastic, right? So it doesn't biodegrade. It takes around 600 years for it to break down, but it breaks down into microplastics. So it breaks down into smaller pieces of plastic, and fish mistakes these plastics for food, so they feed on them. And they end up in the fish's organism. And what happens sooner or later is that we as humans, when we consume the fish, we also consume the microplastics. So we end up with microplastic on our plate. So today, or on this cleanup, we went to Trincomalee, to the east coast of Sri Lanka, because it is the right season here to go. We also go to Batticaloa. We went there last year to do a cleanup, and when the season changes, we go back to the west coast. So we go to Colombo. We mostly do clean up marine debris there, like plastic debris. But also on our plate is now that we want to go to Mannar, so further up north, because there are supposed to be many ghost nets in that area as well, because there's a lot of fishing going on, and our next mission is to go to Mannar as well and survey it and see how the situation is there. So in and around the coast of Sri Lanka, we mostly face single-use plastics and ghost nets. And well, we can't go down and just collect anything that looks like plastic. We have to actually go and check if the plastic has already merged with the environment. Because it can happen that corals start growing on plastics, or that crabs or whatever call like a plastic bottle their home. Then we can't take it anymore. It can happen that ghost nets start merging with the environment because corals grow through it and stuff. So we actually need to check when we go underwater if the plastic has already become a part of nature, and then we leave it down. Otherwise, we can take it up carefully. When we handle ghost nets, we have to work very, very delicately and work around and cut around the corals and stuff, and then we can bring it up nice and slowly. So we have done a couple of researches and surveys before to understand Sri Lanka's plastic problem better. What we have done is, for example, our transboundary marine litter survey to see where the waste on Sri Lanka's beaches and in the water comes from, because it doesn't all come from Sri Lanka itself. There's a lot of waste coming from Asia or even Europe, India, Malaysia was a big part. Indonesia as well. So that was one survey that we did. Another survey we did was last year, and that was about ghost nets. In Batticaloa, we talked to fishermen because we want to understand the community. We want to understand that side of the community. We want to understand what drives fishermen and what is their motivation. So we talked to fishermen about ghost nets and why they get lost and stuff like that, to understand the community better. What we are doing now, we just got a drone sponsored, which is really, really exciting. And this drone is supposed to make our cleanups more efficient, because we can send the drone underwater before a dive, and we can actually locate the marine debris and the ghost nets, well, very, very specifically. And we can go down and conserve our air consumption and actually only clean the parts, or go down to the parts that are actually full with marine debris. On this cleanup, we are going to try it out the first time, and Eddie has thankfully is willing to try out the drone for us and set it down from the boat.
Okay, this is the first test of the underwater drone. First thing we learned is a strong current will take it wherever the current wants it to go. It's not got a strong enough propeller to do that, but as you go deeper, the current gets less. So it's now my first time really properly controlling it. Not sure if you can see, but we're actually recording a ghost net here on the side. Quite a lot of detail. We can see what type of net that is, any animals that are trapped in it, and as I get better we'll be able to scout around there, determine what technique the divers need to take it up, whether it's just you'll take it up on one sheet, or you need to be very careful around the coral and cut it away in sections. But this is underneath the boat now, at about a depth of 7 metres. You can see it's being pulled around a bit by the current, and I'm not really controlling it at the moment. And there's our boat. So it's looking up and there's the boat and the cable. So yeah. So I'll get better as the day goes on, hopefully, and we'll get a few shots of the divers later. And yeah, I've actually got the ghost net and pincers. I'm not going to try and pull it off because it might be too damaging, but it's a good test of my skill. The tricky thing I've found is not only you're managing the way the currents move, you've got to manage the way the boat moves as well. So it's kind of a double whammy. If the cable's too stretched, then the boat will do it as well. But I've actually got a ghost net in the pincers for the first time ever. So I'm pretty proud of myself for that. And then they just broke free. That's cool.
So we were able to collect almost 90 to 100 kilos of nets yesterday. We did 3 dives yesterday at Phillip Reef, South Reef and Swami Rock. So all 3 dives were absolutely successful and everybody enjoyed, and we were able to do a very productive cleanup. So today's goal is to go back to Phillip Reef and also to South Reef because there was so much of nets that we could not bring back. So today we will be doing 2 dives. And our main goal is to make sure that we collect everything that we could not collect yesterday. So that's the main goal, and also to have fun and have a good dive today.
Okay, the divers that we call for this cleanup are all belong to the Pearl Protectors. They're all Pearl Protector volunteers, and all of them hold a valid diving license. And our requirement is that they have been diving within the last 6 months. If they haven't, they need to do a refresher to be properly prepared for this cleanup dive. And our maximum depth for this cleanup is 18 meters. Because most of them can't go deeper anyway, they're open water certified, but also the dive sites are at an 18-meter depth, so going deeper wouldn't even make sense. So today's goal is to free the dive sites that we chose from ghost nets. We want to get as many nets up as we can, but in a proper way. So it's not about the amount of nets, it's not about that we want to get as much net up as possible. It's about that we want to do it in a proper way. We do not want to hurt any corals. We do not want to destroy corals. If corals have grown through the net, we want to, cut around it nice and slowly. We don't want to harm any marine life. And we want to leave the least impact possible down there. We want to get these nets up, but if they have already merged with the environment, we will adjust to that and we'll cut around that part. For this cleanup, we have 3 dive sites in mind, which is a Tulip Reef. We've been there in May already. We have done 6 dives on Tulip Reef and we have removed a lot of nets last month. But there's still more to clean, so we have to go back anyway to clean the rest of it up. The second dive site is South Reef, which we heard of has a really big ghost net problem, which is very typical for Trincomalee. And the last reef is Swami Rock. Swami Rock is a really popular reef around, it's more like a rock formation there, around divers here. But they're also, especially in the deeper areas, around 18 meters, 16, 17 meters, they have a lot of ghost nets as well. So we are aiming on going to 3 dive sites on this cleanup trip. What people say is blow only bubbles and don't leave any footprints. And that's what we want to do. That's how we want to act. We do not want to harm the environment more. We do not want to destroy any corals. So what we do is we use scissors to delicately cut around corals that have merged through the net already. If there are like sea stars or something entangled in the net, we are carefully removing these so that we don't harm them and don't bring them up to the surface. And fish that are entangled in the nets, we set them free as well. And we always make sure that we do not harm the environment even more than it's already harmed.
This was our last dive, the 13th dive and the 5th dive of the 13th setup that we did. We removed the entire nets that we found at Tulip Reef and found this turtle on top of these nets. But that was just such a nice, pleasant thing to see. But it was really sad also seeing it on top of these nets. Luckily it wasn't entangled, so it was able to go away. But we're really glad that we removed, I guess, most of the nets that we found at Tulip Reef. And something really nice to see was the jellyfish. Thousands of jellyfish underneath here right now, just probably saying thank you for the work we've done. So really great, really happy.
Okay, so we just got back from our last dive. This was this 5th dive in 2 days, and we're back at Tulip Reef. We've been here in May and have collected a lot of ghost nets in May already. Now we're back and we've cleaned it all. It's all gone. Like by the end, we couldn't find any more nets to clean in this area. So yeah, huge thank you to everyone who participated, and it was a massive success. We saw a hawksbill turtle on this dive, so I think everyone is leaving with a really good note. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So since yesterday, here in Uppaveli, Trincomalee, we went out early in the morning to some of these reefs, especially Tulip Reef and Southern Reef, South Reef, and we started removing these fishing nets, which have entangled in a very large area. And we went down, we saw how much of impact they have caused to the corals and the marine life, and generally the seabed. And we saw like corals just shredded away, and like on the bottom of the sand, we saw like a lot of fish that were entangled. We saw other marine life, crustaceans, all entangled in these fishing nets. We also started removing these nets according to like a predetermined standard, and we exactly followed a strict code of conduct where we did not have any impact on the marine environment while we were doing this. So we conducted 3 dives yesterday in South Reef and in Swami Rock, and then today we conducted 2 more dives in Tulip Reef, where we approximately collected about 200 kilograms of fishing nets. We also collected some plastic pollution as well, but primarily it was all ghost fishing nets. So we are glad that we actually took it out, because we know now that since these nets are not there, the marine life there, the marine ecosystem can thrive, and this can be their home, this can be their new habitat. So it was very emotional seeing how it was before, and once we removed it, how happy we were. So all the volunteers who participated, they felt the same satisfaction, and here we brought them back to the shorelines, and we started cleaning them so that we can upcycle these ghost fishing nets and really spread the message of the impact caused by ghost fishing nets. We want to welcome you to be part of this expedition. If you believe you're a scuba diver who has over 12 to 15 dive experience, you can be part of the expedition by registering as a Pearl Protector volunteer and then signing up for this expedition. Once so, we will be evaluating all divers who sign up, and then we will be briefing, sharing knowledge about how to effectively clean these ghost nets, and then you can be part of our team where we go around Sri Lanka, Trincomalee, Batticaloa, Mannar, down south, even Colombo and Negombo, where we identify some of the sensitive marine ecosystems and the reefs to remove not only ghost fishing nets but also plastic pollution.
So it's actually funny that a lot of people, most of the people know about the plastic problem that we have in Sri Lanka, but also worldwide. People know that we have a problem with single-use plastics. What not many people know is that ghost nets is equally as bad for the environment. Like, people don't know what ghost nets are, but it's such an important issue these days, because what happens in Sri Lanka is these ghost nets, they cover up all the reefs. And when you look at reefs, they make up 1% of the ocean, but they are a home, let's say a home, to 25% of all fish underwater, of all marine life. So what happens here is these ghost nets cover up the reef and they take that home away from marine life. So if you look at it in the long shot, fishermen really hurt themselves because the fish populations will drop and they will have less fish to catch. Well, if you take this further, then, well, there's less fish in the ocean, right? We catch less fish and you can't make a living anymore. So we really have to address this issue. When you look at the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is, 1.6 million square kilometers big, which is 24 times the size of Sri Lanka. We can't even imagine that size. But when you look at that Great Pacific Garbage Patch, 46% of it is made of ghost nets. It's not just single-use plastic. 46% is ghost nets or lost fishing gear. So it is really, really a big issue that needs to be addressed, but people don't know about it yet. So people wake up. We have to address this issue because we can. We can put measures in place that fishing gear doesn't get lost anymore. We need to get the message out, and we also need to convince fishermen and the fishing community that they really harm themselves in the long run.
We call on the Sri Lankan government to enact regulations to control the problem of abandoned, lost, and discarded fishing gear. Only through a national policy framework and strict enforcement can Sri Lanka's seabeds and the future of Sri Lankan fishermen be secured.